Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of CNW's Behind the Cover. I'm your host, Laura Miller, here with Toni Preckwinkle, the president of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, the governing body responsible for overseeing operations in Cook County, which is a lot of people in a lot of area. We're talking about over 5 million residents, including the city of Chicago, and more than 100 surrounding municipalities. Did I get that right?
You did. 5.2 million people. It's the second largest county in the country after Los Angeles.
Wow.
Yeah, how about that?
So before we even get anything, Madam President, thank you so much for joining, but when you think about it, when you set out for this position in 2010, did it dawn on you this was the second largest area in the United States? Did it factor into your willingness to take this job?
No, I didn't realize that it was the second largest county in the country. I knew the population of Chicago, about 2,750,000 people, but another 750,000 people live in the suburbs. So
Yeah.
it's a very large, in terms of population, county. And I'm proud to have represented it for the last 16 years.
16 years. That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you. I mean, and we're not going to go serious in the minutia in the woods, right? Because we don't want to keep you for too long. But I do want to ask you about the burden that you could possibly feel for that many people and that many municipalities. Is there anything that gives you a certain amount of stress as it relates to that, specifically to the people?
Well, I'm very grateful to have a great team. My chief of staff, Lynetta Haynes-Turner, is a wonder, and all of the folks on our team, are so committed to public service and to providing the best possible governance for the people of the county, and that's always a relief to me. And so it keeps the job from being as stressful as it might under other circumstances.
A good team won't keep you far. I do agree with that. So when you look at the Cook County today, what tells you your work isn't finished? Because we know that there was in the last couple of years, people kept asking you, Madam President, are you going to resign? Are you done? Are you going to run again? Are you going to run again? And we've decided that you're running again. Here you are, right?
Right.
What makes you feel like I should still put my time into this when you could, maybe not Florida, you can go somewhere and relax?
This is a moment where the people of Cook County need someone who's going to stand up for them and protect the residents of the county and the programs that they rely on. Because the President of the United States has declared war on us. Blue states, blue counties, blue cities. And he wasn't in office more than a couple of weeks, and he sued the governor, the mayor of the city of Chicago, and me, alleging that we were not helping with the enforcement of immigration laws. And we said, that's not our responsibility, that's the federal government's responsibility. And so instead of being intimidated, which is what they were trying to do, we fought them. And we run in court about 6 months later in the fall. But this was about trying to get us to work with the Border Patrol and ICE. And then of course when the Border Patrol and ICE came, I issued an executive order and I said, you can't be on our property, in our hospitals, our clinics, our courtrooms, our parking lots. And I always say I wish I could have forbidden them from being on our streets and sidewalks, because they kidnap people off our streets, they send them to detention centers in other states and in foreign countries. And they, as you well know, they shot and killed a single father in Franklin Park and shot 5 times one of the protesters. And people were engaged in nonviolent protest, and they were tear gassing them and pepper spraying them.
Yeah.
So, and what we've seen is not just their assaults on the immigrant community, but President Trump and the Republicans in Congress passed a budget bill which reduced access to health care, made it harder to get on Medicaid, made purchasing health care plans on the marketplace more expensive, reduced access to food stamps. We're going to have more hungry kids in our country and in Cook County, and most recently they sued the state of Illinois to try to take away our child care subsidies.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I said, this is a moment when we need somebody who's willing to stand up for the people of Cook County, and I've proven that I'm willing to do that I have the courage and the experience to do.
So I want to ask you something that is, I don't normally ask officials because I feel like it's rude, but I can't allow the time to speak with you to go on without asking you about these Brendan Riley campaign videos. These ads are ghastly, to say the least. Is there anything specifically that you'd like to refute?
Sure. So when I came into this job, there was a $487 million budget gap to close.
Mm-hmm.
The pensions were on the brink. There was no plan for a budget. And the fiscal year had already started, and there was no plan, no budget, no plan. And for 15 years, we've had balanced budgets. We've not increased the property tax levy. So 15 years of balanced budgets, 15 years we haven't increased the property tax levy. In the last 9 years, we haven't increased taxes at all.
Mm-hmm.
For the last 4 years, we've gotten a bond rating upgrade every year. So that's a good housekeeping seal of approval. And our pensions are funded at about twice the level of the cities in the county. So, I'm sorry, the cities in the states. So, I think we've done a really good job of fiscal management,
Mm-hmm.
and notwithstanding the false commercials of my opponent.
Yeah, because we classify them as lies, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to talk about property taxes very quickly, and then we're going to go back to health care. There's so many people involved in how people are taxed, how properties are taxed. The assessor's office and the property value associated with that is one quadrant. The board of review, Cook County clerk, the treasurer, local government, the school board, the school systems, the public school systems. There are many things that create what we're actually required to pay.
Right.
And then the treasurer sends the bill out, right?
Right.
I don't know that a lot of voters understand that, and that's why I wanted to ask you specifically about the things that were incorrect about those campaign ads, because I really want it to be clear that we're not responsible for raising property taxes.
Right. So again, the county has not raised property taxes in 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I came into office, the property tax bills had not been out on time for more than 30 years.
Late.
They were late for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
30 years. And we have a very large system, 1.8 million pieces of property.
Mm-hmm.
1.8 million pieces of property. So we had a history of not getting the bills out on time and a huge system. And I said, we've got to figure out how we're going to fix this.
Yeah.
So, to go back to your point, as board president, I don't assess properties, that's the assessor.
At all.
I don't send out the tax bills, I don't collect the money, that's the treasurer. I don't, deal with appeals of your taxes, that's the board of review. And the clerk, of course, has a kind of recording function in this
Mm-hmm.
process. So we've got 6 separately elected officials that are responsible for the administration of the property tax system. I'm not one of them. But what I can do as president of the board is bring people together, try to be sure that they have the resources that they need and the technology that they need to do their work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have worked long and hard to try to address this system. Again, for 30 years, the bills didn't go out on time. And we've met the challenge now. The bills went out on time for the first evaluation in 2026, first bill in 2026. And they will be out on time going forward, and we'll have a transparent and accountable system. It wasn't easy to get here, but it was absolutely necessary that we do this work.
I love that. So you got them out on time in 26.
That's right.
That's a pretty good report card for you. That's nice for that. Honestly, as you said, in the property over the millions, it's hard to collect that much data either way.
Yeah, 1.8 million pieces of property.
Yeah. But then also you think about the people who run into the situations where their properties or their taxes have been sold, and all of the iterations of those horrible things that are
Right.
affecting people. When they come out late, that kind of makes it a little easier to do. So I like that in 26 they've gone out on time.
Okay, but they're out on time and they'll be out on time going forward.
There you go. I love that. We feel better. So I want to talk about the county's healthcare system.
You know, every room I go in, I ask, is there anybody in this room that was born at Cook County Hospital? And they're always hands raised.
Yeah.
Always hands raised. For 180 years,
Mm-hmm.
we've taken whoever comes to our door
Mm-hmm.
in the Cook County Health and Hospital System, and we should all of us should be proud of that fact.
Yes.
Regardless of your ability to pay, your race, your gender, your documentation status, anybody can get care at Cook County Hospital.
High quality at that.
And we have a world-class health system, and I am very proud of it. You know, in addition to providing hands-on care, we now also have a Medicaid expansion insurance program, insure people, Medicaid patients, and it's called County Care. So we have a health and hospital system that delivers care. We have an insurance program called County Care. And County Care has almost 400,000 patients. And it's the highest ranked program in the state. Highest ranked Medicaid insurance program in the state. I'm very proud of it. But you know, healthcare is a human right. And when we look at healthcare, one of the things that is challenging to people is paying their medical debt. And, you know, in this country, it's the first reason people end up in bankruptcy. They can't pay their medical bills. And nobody should be penalized for being sick, right? So, one of the things we did with our federal money to help combat the negative effects of the pandemic was look for a partner to eliminate medical debt for our residents. 600,000, more than 600,000 Cook County residents have had $1.5 billion in medical debt relieved as a result of the program that we started, medical debt elimination.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And it started, I think, in 2022, just as the pandemic was kind of winding down. And I am very grateful that after we started our program, Governor Pritzker looked at it and decided this is something he wanted to do statewide. So we started out in Cook County, and then the governor picked up the program for the state of Illinois, again with our partner Undo Medical Debt, the not-for-profit that has been in this space for quite some time. $1.5 billion in medical debt eliminated, and more than 600,000 Cook County residents impacted.
Wow. So those are big numbers. That is the difference between a family having to be completely bankrupt over medical bills and versus them being able to afford living in their apartment.
Right.
Or not being able to pass on that generational debt. I think a lot of times we don't think about it in that way, generational debt.
Right.
Because we can have something that is a generational wealth, that is something that we speak of favorably. But we have generational wealth. We have debt we've been paying for decades that we have to pass on because it's something that we are not able to maintain. So the fact that you have this is great. Are there any other counties in the country who have modeled after your tenure?
Well, my understanding is that there are a number of cities and counties across the country that have picked up this idea. I can't tell you the exact number, but we were the first and started out with the largest program, and I am, you know, very grateful that the governor decided that he would pick up the idea as well.
I love it.
We had a press conference on March 3rd. The governor and the lieutenant governor joined me at our health and hospital system to talk about the impact of our medical debt elimination programs.
I love it. So tell me more. When does it start? Is it effective statewide now?
It's effective statewide now, and it's still effective in the county. Actually, we used our resources from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA. This was President Biden's effort to help us combat the negative effects of the pandemic. We used some of those resources. We've spent about $7 million because the idea is that these medical groups, hospital systems, physician groups, sell their uncollected debt to collection agencies for pennies on the dollar. So we buy it instead of having them sell it to collection agencies. We buy it and wipe it out and just send people letters saying your medical debt has been eliminated.
Wow. I hope we can find somebody that's happened to directly, because that would be a really cool human interest story. I
We'll
want
see
to
what we
talk.
can do on that subject.
I want to see who's gonna thank you directly. I don't know. Have you ever had the opportunity to spoken to someone that has had their debt relief?
Yes, at the beginning of this week, I was out in the south suburbs and I found somebody who had gotten one of those letters and was greatly relieved. The medical debt that's been eliminated averages about $1,200-$1,300, so
Yeah,
that's important.
that's money that you can use on something else. That's for sure. So when you think about, you spent decades in Chicago and Cook County politics, right? And when you look at the political culture of this city today, has it changed from when you entered, or do you feel like it's still around the same?
Well, I think across the country, our politics have become more polarized,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's true in Chicago as well as other places. When I was in the city council, there was wherever you were on the ideological spectrum, there was a lot of camaraderie.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to members of the city council now, that's less the case. The political, the ideological camps have sort of hardened more, so it's more difficult. And of course, the President of the United States has helped coarsen our politics by the way in which he talks about his political opponents.
Mm-hmm.
The disparaging, demeaning language that he uses. You know, it's bad enough that other actors in the political arena would talk the way he does, but he's President of the United States.
The president.
He
Exactly.
gives people permission to behave in atrocious ways.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And we're not supposed to. I remember I studied politics. I went to Western Illinois for political science. And you're actually taught how to speak. There's semesters worth of conversations on how to speak logically, how to spin, and all these things.
How to get your message out.
How to get your message out, repeated assertion, and things like that, for it to just be completely stonewalled and eradicated so quickly. It was a very
descended into name calling and,
yeah,
as I said, demonizing.
yeah, it's a very strange time. And that's why I wanted to ask you that, because Chicago politics has always been unique to us, and it's been studied all over the country, right? But I wanted to get your take on if you felt the Post was changing as much as I feel from a journalistic standpoint it has changed. It feels super loud.
Yeah, it's much more difficult to be a public servant because, as I said, the language is coarsened. The way in which people respond to their elected officials is more kind of confrontational.
Yeah.
And all of that makes it difficult to be a public servant.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed about you came in, we had the roundtable discussion. It was really hard for people to understand what you do. Even tenured journalists really were confused about the role of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, and specifically what you do as the board president, right? If there was a way, what's the quick and dirty 10-foot explanation to the voters on what this job entails and why someone like your opponent saying, oh, we need new leadership and we need less of this and less of that. I want you to tell us why the role is important, what it does, and then also while refuting what your opponent is saying.
Sure. Well, I think people understand that the mayor is the executive for the city and the governor is the executive for the state.
Correct.
The president of the board of commissioners is the executive for the county.
Mm-hmm.
And your principal responsibility is preparing the budget, getting the budget passed. That's the first obligation. And as I said, we've done that, I think, real well. Been good financial stewards. 15 balanced budgets, 15 years without raising property taxes, 9 years without raising any taxes at all. So your first obligation is the financial stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
That's your first obligation. For us, the substance of what we do is half of our budget is healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Half of our budget. And as I said, I'm very proud of the fact that we have a healthcare system that takes anybody who comes to the door of our hospitals or our clinics. That's a blessing for all of us, not just the people who use our system, but all of us that have a system available to us that does that. You know, one of the previous CEOs of the health and hospital system used to talk about herd health. It's true for people as well as animals. You want everybody you come in contact with to be in good health. The people who ride the bus or the train with you, the people who serve you in restaurants, the people who meet you in the hallways in your office. You'll be healthier if they're healthier as well.
For sure.
So, to the extent that we support the healthcare ecosystem, you know, we're doing God's work. So that's half our budget. About 25 or 30%, depending on the year, is public safety. Now, President Trump has made a point of demonizing Chicago, talking about how terrible and violent it is, you know. But in fact, violent crime is down across the country. It's down in Cook County. And in the last 4 years, murders are down in Cook County 50%. 50% decrease in the number of murders. And in the city of Chicago, there were fewer murders last year than any year since the 1960s. So we're making tremendous progress, and it's not by accident. We've invested first in the stakeholders in public safety, so the chief judge, the sheriff, the state's attorney, the public defender, and the clerk. Their budgets have almost doubled in the last 10 years, so they've staffed up, they've gotten technology and other assistance and support they need. They've gone from $1 billion to $1.8 billion. So first of all, we've beefed up the offices of the public safety elected officials. And then we've invested in community-based organizations, $200 million invested in the last 4 years. Organizations that are out on the street, when some act of violence happens, to try to keep people from retaliating, and they have the vicious cycle of violence. Violence interrupters, what they're called, brave people, I'll tell you. Organizations that support young people who are involved in the justice system. Organizations that support people who are coming out of jail or prison to help them turn their lives around. And behavioral health services, because we know if people don't have behavioral health support, they might end up in our criminal justice system. So we've made investments in the elected officials in public safety. We've made investments in community-based organizations to help us focus on violence prevention. And last but not least, for me, always is economic development. And we've made a $100 million investment in 38,000 businesses in the last 4 years, because the small business community was really heavily impacted by the pandemic. It was a real challenge to their survival. And so we provided them with grants and technical assistance and other supports through organizations like the Urban League, the Chicago Urban League, and the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So they got help directly, and they got help through these networks. So I'm, got the county on a strong financial footing. We've made investments in healthcare, improved the quality of care we deliver, the efficiency with which we deliver it. We've supported medical debt relief, invested to reduce crime, and we've invested in economic development. And I'm proud of all of that work.
I love that. That's a lot of work. And you said something a couple of weeks ago when we were here. You said sometimes people don't understand how long it takes to do some of these things. Like, this is not you might have planned to, bring violence down 10 years ago. But the process is not necessarily an overnight process.
No, there's no magic wand, and you can't just snap your fingers and make things happen. We began our criminal justice reform work in 2013, and it was focused on reducing the number of people in the jail accused of nonviolent crimes. So people were in jail accused of shoplifting or low-level drug offenses, sometimes even traffic offenses, deprived of their liberty, unable to go to work, to go to school, to support their families in any way, because they couldn't pay even a nominal bond because we were so reliant on cash bonds. And so we began work with the stakeholders in public safety to talk about the jail population. And as I said, when I came into office, there were 10,000 people in the jail on a daily basis. They're now less than 6. And again, this is in a moment when violent crime is going down, and we've instituted all these reforms in the criminal justice system, including the elimination of cash bail. We should be very proud of that. Because previously we had a system where your liberty was dependent on the size of your wallet, and that's surely not a just system.
No, not at all. So, this last question is fun. What do you do for fun, Madam President? What is your guilty pleasure that you're like, oh man, I really wish people knew that I'm not all serious. Sometimes I like to watch Bridgerton. Like, what is the thing?
Actually, I do love Bridgerton.
I do.
Guilty pleasures. Let me just say, first of all, I love to read. I would recommend, the latest book I read is a very thick biography of Martin Luther King, King Alive.
Okay.
Jonathan, I think you pronounce his last name Egg, it's E-I-G.
Mm-hmm.
It's either Egg or Eeg, I'm sorry, can't pronounce it correctly. But it's a wonderful biography of King that humanizes him, and makes it clear you don't have to be a perfect person to be the prophetic visionary that he was.
I love that.
I always say he's an American prophet.
Mm-hmm.
So I love to read. I also like, I'm a history teacher, so I like antique shows and antique fairs. I like old stuff.
I love it. Antique Roadshow. I miss Antique Roadshow.
Yeah.
It was a good show.
I loved it. Yeah.
Ted, did you read that book? It was, I can't remember the author of it. I wish I had my phone, I could tell you. It's like things that my teacher lied, the lies my teacher told.
The
or
lies my
something.
teacher told me.
Yeah, I love that book. And I want to give it to my daughter, but she's 10 and I feel like I would disrupt her education program. But I really love that book and I recommend that for everybody watching. It's really good. And it's really interesting to know, like, no, Christopher Columbus did not die destitute and Helen Keller was like an activist. Like, these are things that they just kind of drop us off historically and they don't like to tell us, but
Right.
I love that. Well, Madam President, I thank you so much for joining
Thank
today.
you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm grateful.
So is there anything before we go that you want to tell our listeners that they absolutely need to know about today?
This is a critical election for the American people. You know, Donald Trump has been able to pursue these cruel policies in large part because he has the Senate and the House in Republican hands.
Yeah.
And all of us need to be aware of our obligation to vote. I always say your first obligation as a citizen is to cast your ballot. You know, but that's the beginning and not the end. You need to support the candidates you believe in. You need to encourage your friends and neighbors to do so. You need to contribute money and time to make our democracy strong. So I'm very grateful for the support I've received from the people of Cook County and hope for it one more time.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay.